Guys, and welcome back. Yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend is over, and I've been actually working on building a lot of sub-assemblies over the weekend, and I actually glued this the other day and got it done and had it clamped down, and everything is pretty well kosher. These are actually installed. They're self-explanatory where they go. They go on straight as a gunshot. And the top piece, this here, I wanted to bring up a little bit on here. This is the only two-piece part there is in the whole thing for the canopy frame, and I have not glued it yet because it is kind of loaded up a little bit. But anyway, what we're going to do here, I've told a lot of guys about using a lot of tape and parts, but these parts go together so precise, there's really no need to clamp a whole lot of this. The airplane builds very quick, and it unbelievably fast on the framing. The main thing about this is that the sheeting, when it comes into this, the sheeting is going to give it a lot of its strength. However, this is all going to have to be, these will get a light sanding before I start planking. And a lot of guys have asked me about how I did it, because on the Spitfire and all my Zoroli's that I built, I use a water forming method, which is a cup of water, well, a cup of ammonia. I go down to the store and buy regular ammonia, hottest water I can get in the bathtub, and I soak the balsa in it for about 10 minutes until it's absolutely soaked. And then I clamp it using whatever method I need to clamp it to get it, and then I just let it dry. And I will actually show you this. It's a really cool method. It's something that was taught to me by, actually, my grandpa taught me how to do it doing real airplanes. They did actually build some of the older planes with real thick balsa, and then they would sheet it with plywood, aircraft grade plywood, and to get it pliable and bend it, they would actually either steam it or they would put it in ammonia and water, and the hottest they could get it, and just get it wet, and it just formed any configuration. And it actually works really well for this. Now, I want to bring up a couple little things here on this. Now, these parts can be a little bit loaded, but I want to show you that in order to get these here, I clamped that down to get it where it's going to go. But right in here, you're going to have to do a little bit of sanding around this to kind of tree this edge up just a little bit. Now, this is the hatch, obviously, and the reason I built it first is because, well, it was the first thing I grabbed, and I'm not going to sheet this until it's on the airplane, until I can actually massage the fit on it, and I'll show you that later. There's a lot of fitting to do on this airplane, and for the most part, it's very, very straightforward, but there are a few things that need to be trimmed out, and I'll talk about it. There's a lot of laminating to do, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about what this little contraption over here is and what its purpose is. Now, I got parts laying here. I know I don't seem like I'm very organized right now, but I know exactly where they are. This part is where the fuselage is going to actually come apart, but I want to show you this because I'm in a kind of a good deal to where I can show you how this works. And you got to make sure that you build this to the relationship it goes into the airplane. And it's not a hard thing to build. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it is going to take some cutting right in here and on the long runs that actually go in it. And you're going to notice too where your tailpipe is going to actually mount up. It's actually a two-piece thing. Now, I am going to beef that up a little bit. I'm going to put some gussets in here, and when I do, put the longeron in there. Now, I'm using stainless steel screws just simply so they don't rust or anything like that, but I probably will not use these Phillips heads. I probably will go with a hex type head and a washer on there, but I thought this looked good, so I went with it. And the main thing is, in most aviation, these screws are not long enough, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. In any perfect world, you want at least 3 threads showing, and these will also just be tight. There's one, they'll be tight, but no Loctite in them. Reason is I don't want it to go out there and rip these loose. Now, these particular parts are real easy to get, no issues. They glue in real nice, but they actually are press fit, and they actually go almost all the way through that. But if you look, this is just about a 1/2 inch thick now, and not hard to achieve this. It's just what it is. But I do want to show you on here that you do need to make sure they're facing the right way. And so I have this, and you want to make sure this part is facing back and that one is facing forward. This one goes into the wing. This comes in, and then you have these parts. And sorry about the camera, guys. I'm doing this all myself, and that's just the way it is. These parts glue in to that relationship like so. This is to the front. Make sure that you don't build it backwards. Now, I thought about this and I thought, wow, that was a really thick part. But I looked at it and I just realized the fact is I got 2 of them. And some of the parts you'll see that you have duplicates, but they don't last. This is another one that there are 2 of. And I'm glad it's that way because I broke one of them. And they're easy to break, guys. You got to be very careful when you start getting things ready to go. You do need these tubes to align everything before you glue anything in. They're a very tight fit, but you know what? That's awesome. These parts, as you can see, I didn't glue this one in because I wanted to show you. These are extremely tight, and I'm glad they're that way. And they just push in. They're not ridiculous, but it takes some time to make sure everything is completely seated. Once it's done, you can clamp it and glue that, and it actually sets up to be a really nice joint. And that's the only 2-piece windshield frame there is. And the rest of them are all pretty much self-explanatory where they go. And if you fit this up correctly, I strongly recommend that you glue this one first. It just sits in there at a 90 degree from here to here. This one dictates that these will all stay straight up to the tail. Now, as you can see, this is not glued yet, and there are 2 holes. These are for pins, for alignment pins, and they actually do. In fact, they match up beautifully. I mean, they really did their homework when they designed this kit. I mean, this took maybe 20 minutes to fit it all together. I've got glue drying on it now, and I'm not going to bore you guys with watching me glue a lot of parts, because until we really get into the sheeting of this thing, because I don't want to lose anybody's interest. And again, I'm building this in my rec room to show just how much room you're going to really need for this and what we're actually building, because I don't want you to get deterred from building something this size. If you say got a spare bedroom, as long as you got a 12-foot wall somewhere, you're going to be fine. This airplane gets big real quick. You run out of a lot of real estate. If you got a garage or a shop, make sure that you have one bay that's just dedicated to your airplane. Now, this is Sorry about the glare, but this is where we play, you know, and have fun. This is our rec room. And as you can see, I've pretty much taken up all of the extra space. This is where, you know, we get together and have our little jam sessions and stuff like that. But I'm trying to build this without being too crude. Now, one thing I will be doing here is actually, when I build the wings and all that, they will be done on an actual workbench. The one thing that I would say, all these smaller assemblies and stuff, don't worry about them. If you got a small table like this or an old desk or anything, it works great as long as you can get it and you can clamp it down, and that keeps it straight in any relation. You got to make sure that you're building a flat part. We'll talk about that in a minute.